My remarks this morning are prepared especially with the young people in mind who are going to be confirmed at this service, but I trust the rest of you can feel your way back into a 15-year-old frame of mind and perhaps benefit also from what I have to say. The second lesson is from the Gospel of John, the 21st chapter. Peter turned and saw the disciple whom Jesus loved following them. He was the one who had reclined next to Jesus at the supper and had said, "Lord, who is it that is going to betray you?" When Peter saw him, he said to Jesus, "Lord, what about him?" And Jesus said to him, "If it's my will that he remain until I come again, what is that to you? You follow me." Let us bow. Oh, strip from us the worries and concerns and preoccupations that have dogged our steps to this place. Grant us some inner space where we may be open to a word from Thee that shall be new life. In the Spirit of Jesus, Amen. If I were a giant genie and could grant you but one wish this morning, what would your wish be? What might rise to the surface? In your list of wants and desires, the wishes you make over the growing number of birthday candles, what would rise to the surface? The health of some loved one, maybe the advancement that you've been dreaming about, the love you've been longing for. I'm sure the wishes here this morning would be as numerous as the faces. But I think somewhere near the top of the list with all of us would be the wish, the desire for a contented heart, for an abiding sense of satisfaction in life, for that elusive thing we tend to call happiness. For no matter the other blessings that fall our way, if we are miserable or depressed or discouraged most of the time, none of these other gifts really mean very much, do they? So what makes us happy? What are the springs of contentment in life? We say money doesn't buy happiness, but it's hard to be very comfortable and content unless you have a minimum of financial security. Jesus is even concerned about the poverty of his own. Love letter, dearest Jim, no words could ever express the great unhappiness I have felt since I broke off with you. Please take me back. No one could ever take your place in my heart, so please forgive me. I love you, I love you, I love you. Yours forever, Marie. P.S. and congratulations on winning the state lottery. It's hard to be happy when impoverished unless you have the qualities of a desert monk, and it's hard to be happy unless you have someone who loves you, parents, friends, some special person. It's hard to be happy without the approval of our peers. A bank mailed this notice to a customer behind in payments on an auto loan. The notice said, "Dear Mr. Jones, what would your neighbors think if we had to send someone out and repossess your new automobile?" The bank received this reply, "Dear sir, I have discussed the matter with my neighbors to see what they would think, and they all feel it would be a mean, low-down, rotten, dirty trick." Happiness is getting an A on a test when you expected to get a C. Happiness is passing your driver's test on your 16th birthday, to which a friend said after the first service, happiness is also getting your driver's license, passing your driver's license test on your 86th birthday. Happiness is coming home late and your parents not saying a word. Happiness is your parents leaving home and leaving you alone. In other words, happiness consists of the satisfaction of some of the needs and wants we have in life. They may change over the years, but if they're not satisfied in part, we tend to be discontented, if not miserable. I need food, clothing, roof over my head, love, recognition, adventure. We all do. But the trouble is this, there's a strange paradox about life. We don't get the things we want and need in life by making their pursuit the central focus and ambition of our days. Happiness is never achieved as a goal. It's always a byproduct of some other interests and endeavors. And there are at least two I would like to lift up this morning. If there are two goals in life I would urge on the confirmands, indeed on all of us, they are these. The first is, finally, wholehearted acceptance of who we are. I don't mean acceptance of what we fail to do or what we do. There are a lot of things I've done or have failed to do that I'm not happy with, and I suppose there always will be, but I mean contentment with whom I am as a special, unique creation of a loving God, acceptance of our level of intelligence, our peculiar shape and face and height and weight and birthmarks and zits and abilities and disabilities, our own gifts and inadequacies, the sum total of all the things and qualities that make up Mary and John and Elizabeth and Morton and you and me. Now, on the face of it, that seems a pretty simple thing to ask, and yet how few of us manage it with any consistency. Why? Because I think we live comparatively rather than contentedly with who we are. Jesus has just finished affirming Peter by the seashore. Peter, who has blown it big time. And what does Peter do? He turns and sees this other disciple whom Jesus also loves, and Peter says, "Lord, what about him?" What about him, Peter? Are you already stewing about where you stand in the pecking order of the friends of Jesus? And the affirmation, the embrace that Peter has just experienced begins to fade. Jesus has accepted him back, but poor old Peter can't leave it at that. True story. Kelly was always envious of her lab partner, BJ, who always looked great. Her clothes were always exactly right. She was slim as a reed, and her hair never wilted on humid days. Kelly didn't date much, but BJ was going with one of the coolest guys in school, and he drove her home every day in his sports car. They went to all the good parties. At lunchtime, in the cafeteria, Kelly would sit watching BJ across the room, eating with her friends, flicking her thick hair over her shoulders, laughing the hardest of all of them. And Kelly felt she could never be a BJ, would never be happy like her. She spent a lot of time watching television or wandering through the park by herself, wishing she were like BJ. Then came the shocker. BJ, the princess of the in crowd, went home one afternoon and tried to take her life. Kelly could not believe it. After a few days when BJ didn't come back to school, Kelly went over to her house. BJ looked awful. She took one look at Kelly and started to cry. "You're the first person to come and see me," BJ said. The two girls talked, and the real story came out. All of BJ's running around, all the laughter, all of it was just a front, a desperate effort to be something she was not, because she was afraid her so-called in-friends would not accept her if they really knew her. Actually, she hated the parties, the pressures to drink and stay out late, but to be acceptable, she felt she had to play the game, do what her friends wanted her to do, laugh at the jokes, keep up the facade, but it got harder and harder every day, and she felt emptier and emptier and more trapped and desperately lonely inside. She despised herself. She despised herself. And she tried to end it all. Kelly and BJ, neither of whom could come to terms with who they were, because they had to be somebody else, be like what others were. And there are all kinds of voices and images out there pushing this on us big time. Watch television, read the magazine advertisements. What are they selling? They are not selling deodorant. They are not selling diet pills. They're not selling designer clothes. They are not selling exercise equipment. They are selling a new and different and better you. They're feeding a nagging discontent with whom you are, or who your children are. I watch and hear mothers comparing their children, extensions of ourselves, are they not? Comparing their 4-year-olds, worrying that little Jimmy doesn't seem as advanced as George is over there. But you will never know anything like real contentment in life until you're able to look yourself in the mirror and say, you're a pretty good specimen of God's creation. You need a little work here and there, but on the whole, you'll do for one lifetime. You really will. Some of the wisest words I ever encountered: there comes a time in a person's life when he must stop dreaming about what he wishes he were. He must accept himself pretty much as he is. This does not mean that he resigns himself to mediocrity and stops setting goals and following ideals. There's always room in human growth for improvement. Rather, it means he begins to face reality. And whatever his looks or build, he does not wish they were otherwise. If he doesn't have great intellectual ability, he doesn't feel cheated. He does not complain about it or try to kid himself. He accepts himself as he is. He even reaches a point where he rejoices in who he is. He is happy that he's different and not a carbon copy of everybody else. If that other guy should live forever, what is that to you, Peter? You are a very special, totally unique creation of your God, and to compare yourself with anybody else is tantamount to a rose complaining because it isn't an orchid. Accept yourself because God in Christ has accepted you just as you are, warts and all, loves you just as you are. And to begin to accept yourself in this way is the beginnings of real joy and contentment in life. So that's the first half of the story. Then comes the second. What is it to you what happens to the other guy? You follow me. Accept yourself and forget yourself. Accept who you are and give yourself away. Happiness, contentment comes in life as we get beyond ourselves in some larger goal, cause, enterprise. And for Christians, that means following Jesus. But what on earth does that mean? Getting on a plane, flying off to Palestine to wander around the land where he did? Not at all, although that's not a half-bad idea, and I'm about to take it up. What does it mean to follow Jesus? Well, where does he go and where does he lead us? He goes to the needs, the dreams, the sufferings, the joys of others. He leads us to service of others in family and friendship and vocation, and even the casual encounters of the everyday. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean doing anything different than what you're doing, but it may mean doing it for other better reasons. Why do you study for good grades? If the only reason you study for good grades is to please your parents or keep them off your back or get yourself into a good college so you can make good money and find a good gal or guy, it's not enough. It won't do it. Why do you work? If it's for extrinsic reasons alone, to fill the day and draw the paycheck, it'll not do it. Only as you want to make your gift, the gift of yourself, with enthusiasm and dedication and excellence, only as you have a vision of yourself as useful and important and contributing to a larger world than your own, will you know the real rewards in life. But certainly, I think it also means some time in our routine to truly reach out beyond ourselves and our own petty worries and our own self-absorption and our own hungers and desires to truly relate and give to somebody else in need, whether it's close at hand or in the city, because this is where the true rewards are. This is where real happiness lies, in forgetting ourselves, in giving ourselves away. One of our young men in his 20s spoke to our young people a week or so ago, and he talked about a high school where he experimented with drugs because he thought they would make him feel good. They didn't. He now teaches children down in the city, and he's a happy man. Most of you have heard of Albert Schweitzer. If we'd been able to visit him in Lambaréné, Africa, walk with him through the hospital compound where he gave his life to the pains and troubles of another people, and if we'd asked him how things were going, would we have heard, "Oh, I'm glad you asked. I have terrible troubles every morning because of lower back pain. I have a rotten mattress, so lumpy I can't move around comfortably for hours. And you know there are no screens here, and we don't flot swies here, so they drive me wild, keep me awake all night. Have you noticed the food? Every morning the oatmeal is cold and lumpy, and the cook claims she adds raisins, but I really think it's those darn flies. And after that, I have to go into surgery all day long with one nurse who has horribly bad breath." Now, I've read a great deal about Albert Schweitzer, and a lot of that description would have been true. But I'll bet we would never have heard a word about it. For Dr. Schweitzer was a man who had so left himself behind, who had so accepted the pains and difficulties of a life given to larger things, that the petty inconveniences were scarcely noticed and certainly never mentioned. We would have been conscious of being in the presence of a truly happy human being. But we can all find our Lambaréné, accepting ourselves, gifts and handicaps, giving ourselves away. Dr. Larry Baker became totally blind due to a viral infection when he was 25 years of age. when the physician told Baker, "I'm afraid I have to tell you something that will affect the rest of your life you will never see again." Baker replied, "Doctor, I understand what you are saying, but I will determine the effect." Baker, who was married with 3 children at that time and working for a family dairy when he lost his sight, described himself in high school as a member of that 1/3 of the class that made the top 2/3 look great. But taking advantage of a scholarship offered to persons with sight disabilities, Baker entered Indiana University and received a bachelor degree, graduating 5th in a class of 780. He received the Presidential Achievement Award, and he went on to earn his master's and doctor's degree in business administration. Then he taught as a professor for 10 years and finally formed his own company. And blind Dr. Baker now presents time management seminars internationally. But what's his secret? He says it's a sense of mission beyond himself. He insists that everybody has some disability. Everybody is victim of something, some lack of ability to do what they want to do. But the most severe disability I ever encounter, he says, are people who are paralyzed from the neck up. Nobody has ever failed by giving more than they receive in life, having faith in God, but no less in yourself and your mission in life. Set goals larger than yourself, and then pay the price. What is that to you? Come follow me. Accept yourself, give yourself away. I scratch out a little verse from time to time. Some years ago, I tried to put the feel of it in these words: "Let me lose me in this day. Move out beyond the pondering self. Let loose the play where I so often stay, brooding on my health or wealth. See the glistening green, feel the warming ray, mark the winged call, the stealth of minor creatures on their furtive way. Let me lose me in this day, not as one despising me, lacking inner center, heart in disarray, but as one whole being, free to love, to give one's gifts, and draw one's joys from a world around of labor and neighbor. Learn life's law, that life is always out beyond." And it is. It's out there. Don't miss it. Amen. All Christian traditions provide their young people with an opportunity in the years of their teens to reflect a little further on their faith, to make a public profession of faith, and to commit themselves to responsible life in the Christian community. And this year we have 43 young people who have done that and are about to do that. They have been with us on retreat. They have sat here for how many Sundays listening to me talk? 6, 7. I hope it won't entirely be the last that they'll come here. I would understand if they took a little vacation. But they have been here, and then following, they have entered into discussions, and because of the growing size of our confirmation group, we have asked mentors, adults interested in the young people, to take the time to sit with them and work with them to the point where they could prepare their own confession of faith, which they have done. I wish you could read them. They're moving, they're individual, they're questioning, but they are above all affirming. So for the confirmation of these young people, then, I will ask the mentors if they will come forward so that they may present them to us. They are, by the way, Heather Hoffman, David Hoffman, Betsy Storm, Phyllis Myers, and Rick Meyer.